Okay, proclamations.
Yes, sir.
Deb.
We have a couple of proclamations tonight. Can you join us down front? Dr. Janae Bishop Nesbitt. Whereas March is Red Cross Month, a special time to honor the kindness of our neighbors who aid families in need of Low Country across the United States and around the world. And whereas in times of crisis, the citizens of Somerville come together to care for one another, and this humanitarian spirit is part of the foundation of our community. And whereas last year in the Low Country, over 550 active Red Cross volunteers served in local communities, deployed to local disasters, and responded in person and virtually to national disasters like hurricanes and wildfires. And whereas Red Cross volunteers also helped more than 1,100 people affected by over 360 home fires in the Low Country by addressing their urgent needs like food, lodging, and recovery support. And whereas we dedicate this month of March to all those who continue to advance the noble legacy of American Red Cross founder Clara Barton, who lived by her words, "You must never think of anything except the needs and how to meet them." Now, therefore, does Ricky Waring, Mayor of the town of Somerville, hereby proclaim the month of March 2022 as Red Cross Month and encourages all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. All right, Ms. Samantha. Right. Whereas multiple states and local governments since 2016 have passed a proclamation declaring March as Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. And whereas bleeding disorder advocates during this month wear a red material around their neck. And whereas these bleeding disorders, which share the inability to form a proper blood clot, are characterized by extended bleeding after injury, surgery, or trauma, and can lead to significant morbidity and can be fatal if not treated effectively. And whereas this awareness month will foster a greater sense of community and shared purpose among individuals with all inheritable bleeding disorders. And whereas this designation will formalize and expand upon the designation 36 years ago of March 1986 as Hemophilia Awareness Month by President Ronald Reagan. Now, therefore, does Mayor Ricky Waring of the town of Somerville hereby proclaim the month of March as Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. Next, we have the Girl Scouts. Whereas March 12th, 2022 marks the 110th anniversary of Girl Scouts of the USA, founded by Juliet Gordon Low in 1912 in Savannah, Georgia. And whereas Girl Scouts unleashes the girl, the go-getter, innovator, risk-taker, and leader in every girl preparing for her a lifetime of leadership. And whereas throughout its distinguished history, Girl Scouting has inspired millions of girls and women with courage, confidence, and character to make the world a better place. And whereas through the Girl Scout leadership experience, girls develop the skills and lessons that will serve them throughout their lives so that they may contribute to their communities. And whereas Girl Scouting takes an active role in increasing girls' awareness of the opportunities in math, science, sports, technology, and many fields of interest that can expand their horizons. And whereas Girl Scouting takes an active role in many fields of interest, now therefore does Ricky Waring, Mayor of Town of Somerville, hereby applaud the commitment Girl Scouting has made to support the leadership development of America's girls, and proudly proclaims the week of March 7th through 13th as Girl Scout Week. And finally, Sharon. Right. Whereas the National Association of Women in Construction, or NAWIC Palmetto Chapter, has distinguished itself for 4 years as the voice of women in construction in Somerville. And whereas the work done by the NAWIC Palmetto Chapter has benefited Somerville through community development and educational programs. And whereas the NAWIC Palmetto Chapter has unceasingly promoted the employment and advancement of women in the construction industry. And whereas the construction community, represented by NAWIC Palmetto Chapter, has been a driving force in fostering community development through renovation and beautification projects, promotion of skilled trades careers, and a positive vision of the future. And whereas the NAWIC Palmetto Chapter has sought to achieve successful results for Somerville and surrounding areas in a cooperative spirit with other organizations. Now therefore be it proclaimed that Mayor Ricky Waring does hereby recognize the NAWIC Palmetto Chapter and its many dedicated volunteers for their steadfast work on behalf and support of women in construction, and does proudly proclaim the week of March 6th through 12th, 2022 as Women in Construction Week, and encourages our citizens to congratulate the organization on its many accomplishments. That's it.
Before we get started, I noticed that our state senator, Mr. Sean Bennett, walked in. I would like to welcome him to our council meeting. Senator Bennett, glad to have you here with us tonight, and always an honor, sir. Any other guests walk in that I didn't see? Okay, if not, we'll move on with our meeting approval of minutes of the last meeting, our meetings.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve for A, B, and C all together, unless some of the council members have an objection or correction somewhere.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, we got a motion second that we approve A, B, and C on approval of the last 3 meetings we've had for the minutes. Any discussion? We've got a second.
Yes, sir.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion carried. Okay, this time we open the floor for public comments for items on the March 10th town council meeting.
Keith Timmons.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to speak to you regarding the item on the agenda for the speed limit on Laurel Street. My name is Keith Timmons. I live at 704 South Laurel Street, directly across from the area there. It's Saul Alexander Playground. I want to start by applauding you all, the town council, Parks and Rec, and everyone that had a hand in making that park the way it is now. Great job. It looks fantastic. And a lot of people appear to be enjoying it. However, since I telework, I work for the Navy and I work there on the base, and we haven't gone back to work yet. I've seen the numbers of people. It's quite extraordinary how many people are coming out, turning out for that. And you can tell because of all the cars parked along the street on both sides. So with that comes a gauntlet that you have to go down. Now, I've been before you before about the speed limit on Laurel Street. And through my advocacy, working with SCDOT to get a speed study done, working with the public works here, working with Amy Evans, signs were installed. We have 30-mile-an-hour signs because it was a state road at the time, but I understand you all have taken the road back from the state now and you've got it. 30 miles an hour is still too fast. And I just want to appeal to you to keep that in mind. Because with the parking being what it is, and that's a topic for another day, but with it being what it is, cars still find a way to get up to the speed, like on the tunnel turn at Darlington around that curve coming from West Carolina down Laurel from the church on that side, and they get going really fast. And now you've got all these cars parked on either side that you've got to contend with. So it needs to be reduced. And I appeal to you that you will go ahead and consider that to lower it to a nominal speed of 25 like every other street. But with that comes enforcement. Now, in my role, that some of you know me as a standing board member with the Dorchester County Board of Elections and Registration and their current chairman, I've been all over these roads. And recently this week for an election that we just had and went up certified earlier today. So I've seen what the infrastructure is happening around here and how people are taking these back roads and side roads and everything they can do because the infrastructure suffered. So while they're doing that, they're still going at these, breakneck speeds. We need to slow it down. We need to slow it down on Laurel Street. We need to slow it down everywhere until, the infrastructure changes. We got to work with what we have. So I hope we will take this consideration and go ahead and do the right thing and lower that speed and put in some calming, put in some active signage on Laurel Street, the kind of signage I appealed to you once before about things that tell people, hey, if you're going too fast, slow down. You get the little flashing things. They're solar powered. They don't take up any more juice than what they have. And there's active quantitative metrics out there that you can see the effects that they have. People all over the place could show you the metrics of what traffic calming does by active signage. So take a look at it again, take a hard look at it, and let's see if we can do something about the speed there in town and get these folks to slow down a little bit. Children's lives are at stake on that road, folks. We don't need a tragedy to happen before we make a good change. Something we can prevent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Russ, is there something we can do about, we did get that back in our system, right? Is there something we can do about lowering that speed limit right on down to maybe 15 miles an hour and maybe putting some speed bumps on that road when you turn onto it from St. Paul's Church and coming in from Sump Avenue, and maybe put some yellow paint on it or something, because I go down there all the time now that I've gotten the word that how much traffic's on that road as far as being parked on both sides, no question about that. And I've talked to Amy about the use that the park's getting. And also the same thing's happening on Hickory Street. That's another thing we need to address too, but I know that's still in the highway department system. But Laurel Street, when my granddaddy was mayor, they used to close that street during daylight. And that was probably still a highway street, but there was a closer working relation back then. But they would actually close that street other than people that lived on it. They would close it during the daylight hours. And because that's where I grew up. And so they didn't allow any through traffic on that street. And it wasn't near the traffic that this gentleman's talking about now. That because it wasn't a through street. But it is a through street now, and we sure don't want a child to run from behind a car and get run over by that street. And we did have a young girl get run over by Annie Carroll, a girl that I knew growing up. She did get hit by a car doing the same thing on that street when we were young. And so maybe now that we got the street back in our system, we can do all we can do to keep that from happening, because it is dangerous. It's getting a lot of use, and it's going to get more and more use because it's such a great playground now with the way that that our parks and great playgrounds have done with it. And so we just need to look at, and I'll say this to Mr. Jackson, his committee can look into what, get with you, Russ, and see what y'all can do to make it just as safe as we can to South Street, we can do what we want to do with it. But let's turn it over to y'all to study and see what we can do to make it just as safe as we can.
And I agree. And like you, I've been by there just to see how it's going, and it is packed. Matter of fact, I actually let people know by posting a thing on Facebook, cars all the way down the side of the road. And the other challenge is watching mothers, because these children do have challenges, both physical and mental, trying to get their healthy kids and the other kids in the car all at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's beyond discipline. Some of these kids just can't be controlled, and they're going to run where they want to. So yes, we need to put in an extra measure of something this.
Whatever it takes.
Yep.
Is there a reason that we just cannot make a motion to change the speed limit on that street to 15 miles an hour?
It's on the agenda. This is public
Yeah.
comments.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think we need to let the public comment.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, we will take care of that, sir.
We'll vote on it.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any more signed up for public comment for items on the agenda.
We'll move on to petitions then.
Petition by M&T Real Estate LLC to annex Dorchester County TMS numbers 14506050006 and 14510020042 located at 227 and 229 Stallsville Loop and totaling approximately 1.10 acres, currently zoned CG General Commercial in Dorchester County and will be zoned GB General Business upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 3. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on February 28th, 2022. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval at their meeting on March 7th, 2022.
I make that motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Our motion made and seconded, we approve this petition. Any questions or concerns? If not, all in favor of this, say aye. Raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes carried. Pending bills and resolution, Ms. Beth.
Second and final reading of an ordinance to adopt a revised impact fee ordinance for the town of Somerville.
I'll make a motion that we approve the revised impact fee schedule.
Second.
A motion made and seconded, we approve this. Any discussion? Here are none, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried.
For introduction of bills and resolutions, request to rezone TMS numbers 13000000021 and 022, 22100000008, 216 and 217, 73000000021 and 022, located off North Maple Street, Old Dairy Road, and Bear Island Road, approximately 48.83 acres and owned by Dust Off 22 LLC from AC Agricultural Conservation to GB General Business. This would be in Council District 1. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on February 28th, 2022. And the Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval at their meeting on March 7th, 2022.
I'll make a motion. We approve this.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like for Ms. Schuler to address us as to this rezoning request and answer any questions that anyone might have, myself included. These parcels, 48 acres, how long have they been in the town?
I believe they've been in the town since 2014.
Okay, and has any proposed development been presented to the town?
No, sir.
Of course, if we rezone this general business, it's really anything short of industrial use.
Yes, sir.
We could have 48 acres of truck stops along the gateway to Somerville on North Maple Street.
I don't know that we allow truck stops specifically in GB any longer.
Like a Flying J or a,
It could technically be a gas station. Yes, sir.
okay.
It would have to go through the DRB process.
But the zoning is wide open. Other than industrial uses.
Yes, sir. I mean, there are some conditions for certain uses in GB.
And we have no idea what Dust Off 22 LLC wants to do if we put 50 acres at our gateway to general business.
No, sir. They don't have any specific plans at this time. They are, however, working closely with the adjacent property owners on water and sewer access, and also on ingress egress access. And also, I believe they've been working closely to have a kind of a cohesive design for that area.
Would you have a preference if you had the option to work with the developer and make it a plan developed, a multi-use development, or would you rather see it just zone wide open general business?
I mean, the surrounding zoning is all GB, so I mean, I don't know why we would do something different with this piece specifically.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
No, that definitely raised
The
some
owner,
thoughts.
a representative of the owner is here. If you'd like to ask for if they have any more specific plans. However, my discussions with them have been that they do not at this time.
Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Mayor, on this annexation. I approve the annexation. This is general business, but we know that there's a lot of future development coming to the Maple Street area. And we have talked a little bit about the redistricting of the 6 council areas in town of Somerville. So I do have some concern as we get into the residential growth in that area, which is District 1 that I serve, that we will give scrutiny to the redistricting to preserve the diversity that we've had in Somerville all these years. It's made the town what it is. So I just like to make that comment.
And I would like to comment that it definitely has raised some red flags for me. My initial thought right now is to deny, but I think that is unfair because I haven't really thought about this the way I should have. So I will vote for it now, but for second reading, I would be looking for some guidance on what is going to go here and some assurance that that is going to happen, because this will be what the people see coming off of I-26 into our town. So it should be a town vision as they pull in, not gas station. We don't want another Azalea area as the sign coming into our town.
I would echo those comments. When I first got on council and taking office at the same time as Mayor Collins, at the time, the plan for that 197 exit was to go in one direction and only into Berkeley County towards the residential or towards Nexton. And a lot of effort was made to make that a true cloverleaf and to bring folks off of I-26, not only to the Berkeley County, the Nexton, Goose Creek side of I-26, but to the Somerville side. And we've spent a whole lot of money and will spend a whole lot of money on North Maple, Bear Island. And the whole idea was that we were going to get a new gateway to our town. And we had an opportunity to, as Councilman Jackson says, to create a new entrance and frankly, a better entrance to our town. And I mean, everybody knew that this property would not remain agricultural conservation. That's not the issue. The issue is that we zone it general business, we won't have any assurance as to future use. And I mean, I don't want to pick on the entrance that we have. I'm less concerned about the Azalea Square intersection or the Azalea Square entrance to recreating that than I am what we now have on what Berkeley County now has at Jedburgh Road, which is a mess, which is an eyesore. That intersection has the 194 exit's become an eyesore. So I tend to vote for things on first reading and think about them between first and second reading, but I'm just amazed that this has gotten this far without some real input as to what it's actually going to look like and what actually is going to be there. So I intend to oppose.
And I have to say, Nexton, it's not my cup of tea. And yes, it doesn't reflect downtown Somerville, but if we came off that exit to that quality of development, that's inviting. To come off in Jedburgh, I mean, or even the difference between what Nexton has done and what Sangre area used to look like. That's what I'm concerned with. And I would like to know what the plans and visual will be representing our town coming off I-26.
Let me ask a question. Mr. McIntosh, you've been chairman of the planning committee for a good while. Has this been brought before the planning committee at all?
Yes, I'm not even a member of the planning committee, Mr. Mayor.
I'm talking about before,
I think it came up this month.
sir.
I think it came up this month.
So this has not been talked about in the planning committee in the previous years.
Nothing has, what Ms. Schuler says, that the owner has submitted nothing to the town as far as future uses.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, Ms. Schuler, you first.
Beth, do we have the exhibit on this? So this is just a portion of a much larger piece that is already zoned general business that y'all approved previously unanimously. So I'm somewhat confused as to why it's an issue now, but it is part of a larger piece. It's not even the first piece you come to when you'll get off the interchange. It's further down in, and the idea was to have the same zoning so that they could work cooperatively with the surrounding owners and be able to. I know one reason they're requesting the zoning of the whole thing now rather than just the slivers. They're actually planning to give a sliver to the property to the south west of them, and we thought it would make sense to just go ahead and rezone the whole thing rather than them having to subdivide and then rezone that small piece when we know in the future this is not going to remain agricultural conservation. We've been in almost constant contact with the other owners of those pieces and made clear the vision that the town has for this area that was laid out in the vision plan has been reiterated in our additional comprehensive plan, and that the DRB is also well aware of. As I said, this property will have to go before the DRB, so it will have a significant design review prior to having any approval on it. So what you see at Jedburgh, which is in Berkeley County, which has no DRB, and what you see, what originally came to the 199 exit, which had no DRB at the time, there will be a significant difference in what could be approved in terms of the design and the quality of the development on this property.
It's as if she read my mind. Thank you, Ms. Schuler. And on top of that, as we go into the budget retreat next month, we certainly have a lot of needs, and our revenue is heavily dependent upon our citizens who live here. And getting this commercial tax base strengthened in Somerville would be a great benefit for all of us, from my perspective. So I'm kind of excited about this, and certainly will be voting for it.
Well, I am too, because that's what I'm thinking about is, we're looking for, businesses. And we're talking about doing general business here. Sure ain't gonna get anything if we leave it agricultural. I mean, who's gonna plant corn out here on this 48 acres? So what are your suggestions if we're not?
What I'm suggesting is that normally when we try to have any influence over a development, we enter into a development agreement, or we zone something planned unit development, or both. We don't typically give just broad leeway for an important piece of property that's going to be the gateway to our residences in the town.
But we do that next.
No, the zoning controls. The zoning is what controlled, but we don't even have a suggestion from the owner. A lot of times when folks come before us for rezoning, they'll tell us what their intentions are, and we just hope that their intentions don't change, because it's the zoning that controls, not what they tell us they're going to do. When we want to make sure that folks do what they say they're going to do, we enter into development agreements or negotiate a planned development.
Is that what we do, Jesse?
A development agreement could certainly still be done with this property after rezoning it if the developer was willing to go into a development agreement with the town. When we did the UDO, we were trying to move away from having to do a whole bunch of planned developments, because it makes it actually takes a lot more time, staff effort and that sort of thing with the planned unit development. It also costs a whole lot more for the developer, because they have to basically write their own zoning code. So when we made those changes to the UDO, the idea was, with those changes, with the addition of design guidelines and the addition of those things, that we wouldn't need necessarily planned unit developments to get the type of quality of development that we wanted and we're looking for.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, a quick question for Ms. Schuler while she's still there, if you're okay with that. This land use zoning is in line with what we expect in this area, correct?
Yes, sir. When this quarter, we originally looked at one of the mixed use zoning districts. The issue with that is our mixed use zoning districts do not allow for what you might call a big box store. And there are a few big box stores that I think we would very much like in the town that are interested in this corridor that couldn't go there if it wasn't zone GB instead of one of the mixed use districts, which is why that GB was chosen when those other properties annexed to begin with.
So if Dust Off were to want to sell this property, they would be selling a parcel that Mr. Lyle would be very excited to help promote to expand our economic development efforts, correct?
Yes, sir.
So they may not want a plan because they may wish to do something different by selling it, correct?
Correct. And again, the reason they're rezoning the whole thing at this time is honestly, staff thought it made the most sense, rather than having to go through the process of subdividing it to rezone that little that sliver they're going to give off to the property below them that's already zone GB, and that they can't combine with it unless they have the same zoning. And so we just recommended they go ahead and rezone the whole thing rather than having to go through separate processes. I didn't realize it would be an issue with council because the previous properties had already been zoned GB.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we got a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed likewise. Okay. Motion carried.
Proposed amendments to the Somerville Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 2, Section 2.5, Mixed Use District Standards, and Section 2.7, Conventional District Standards. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on February 28th, 2022. The Planning and Development Committee voted to move the item to full council with a recommendation for approval at their meeting on March 7th, 2022.
I'll make a motion, we approve this.
I'll second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Under miscellaneous, there's a correction that needs to be made in the January 13th, 2022 council meeting minutes. They were approved at the February 10th council meeting. Trying to see what page it was on. On one of the pages, I had Mr. Jackson made a motion seconded by Mr. Jackson. And it's supposed to be Mr. Jenkins made a motion seconded by Mr. Jackson. So I just need a motion to make that correction.
I'll make that motion that we correct that.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say, vote. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Authorization for town administrator to sign an agreement with SCDOT for transfer of S 18-131, a portion of North Maple Street to the town of Somerville.
Mayor, may I ask if, and I guess I need to ask Jesse also, if we can just approve all these at one time, since they basically all have to do with North Maple Street.
Are you
B and
referring to
C.
B and C?
B and C.
Just B and C, okay.
That's your motion. I'll second that.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We approve the miscellaneous subjects B and C.
Second.
Okay, so motion made, we approve D and which ones?
B and C.
D and C. Okay,
Bravo, Charlie.
okay. Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion carried.
Consideration of speed limit reduction on South Laurel Street.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we reduce the speed limit on the portion of South Laurel Street that we now control from 30 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour.
I'll second. And I would like to amend that and give Parks and Recreation and Public Works the authority to put in speed bumps and lights where necessary at this time.
Well, having grown up there, living there and representing there, I'll second what you're saying, Mr. Jackson.
Thank
Okay, you all heard
Can
the
I ask a
motion.
clarification on the amendment? Just to make sure. The authority to go ahead and execute, or the
Yes.
authority to bring something back?
No, to
Council.
execute.
Well, I think we would have to come back to council just to authorize the expenditure.
Do you think it would be more than 15,000?
I have no idea. Prob-
If it's more than 15.
Everything,
you got me.
everything costs about 5 times more than I think it's going to. So, yeah.
They'll come back if it's more than 15.
I certainly think one of the things that we would want to look at is what was talked about earlier, and that is at least some warning signs that you're entering this area now. I'm not sure how speed bumps work on Laurel Street in that area. But I think alerting drivers that you coming into a playground area is 15 miles an hour, coming in there both ways is something that we definitely want to do, and I don't see why we can't approve that.
And I'm not telling them what to do. I would just like them to give the authority to do it so they don't have to wait another month and another month. And the other thing I also noticed while I was there, we have a little drop off area that's a U that I have not seen anybody use. And maybe y'all look at taking that island out and making that all handicap parking for people with wheelchairs and stuff, so they don't have to park on the street.
I think there's a motion to amend pending.
So my motion is to give them the authority to do what they see necessary and spend the expenses up till $15,000 to accomplish that.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a second.
Yep, I'm fine.
So the vote would be on on Mr. Jackson's motion to amend my motion.
Call for the vote.
Correct.
What was your motion, Bill?
To reduce the speed limit, which is actually the item on the agenda, from 30 to 15 on that portion of South Laurel Street that the town now owns and maintains.
Okay, Bob, yours was to amend his to whatever.
Yeah, just to give them the authority. to go
Okay, all right,
beyond
all
that.
in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried. Now what we got to do?
The motion, my motion as amended.
All right, now we're voting on Bill's motion as amended. We got a second on that?
We do.
Okay,
The two, I thought it was
All in
Councilman Jenkins.
Or
all in favor of Bill's,
Terry.
huh?
J and
Councilman Jenkins, the only other person on this dais than me that's ever lived at 701 South Laurel, seconded my.
Okay,
motion.
all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand. Voting aye.
Aye.
Ayes carried. No, I knew we were all in sync, but I didn't know I can't keep up with the damn.
Approval of new road signs on Driver Avenue near 6 Iron and 3 Wood as shown at the Public Works meeting on March 7th, 2022, pending the existence of any current signage already in place.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded on the Drive Avenue, the 6 Iron deal. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll vote to approve these signs. I don't know that we've ever voted to approve road signs before. And I believe at least some temporary signs designating this are already up, but notwithstanding those two things, we never voted on these before and they're already up. I will vote for the motion.
Okay, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carried.
Approval of organization to implement home repair and weatherization program for LMI communities.
A motion,
I'll make a motion that we approve.
And I'll second that, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to make a comment. At the last Monday meeting, I sort of gave Michael a hard time because the organization that he had selected to implement this for us and do the filtering of those who were qualified. And so he did some more research and I read that well, and then I sent him an email and we talked tonight, and I think he's on the right track with that. The other two organizations, there was three competitors for the job for the town to filter out the people and get them qualified to receive some weatherization and home repair. And the organization that he focused on was not charging the town any monies at all, whereas the other two, one and two, charge the town a fee. And so that's one thing they had in their favor. The other thing is too, the individual who's working with Operation Home that I'd been dealing with for the last 15 years or so is a nice lady, but anyway, she's retired. So there's a new person now. And so PJ and I have been, we feel a little pretty good about this new person coming in. So I want to thank you, Michael, and you may proceed.
I'm here to answer any questions you all might have.
Yeah. Which organization are you recommending approval?
We recommend Operation Home.
And Mr. Brown, do you have a motion?
I second the motion.
No, go.
Bob made it.
we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry. Thanks, Michael.
Approval of site plan for the changes to the SCPW sewer treatment plant, which is zoned PL. The Planning and Development Committee voted unanimously to move this item to full council with a recommendation for approval at their meeting on March 7th, 2022.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of the site plan.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of this signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Consideration of taking over Dorn's Way from the SCDOT.
I'll make a motion that we take that over for the town and make plans in the future for what to do with it.
I'll second the motion.
And Mr. Jackson, if I could understand exactly what your motion is it solely Dorn's Way?
Yes, just taking over the road, and what we do in the future, we'll decide in the future.
And so if I just want to make sure, my concern is not us taking over Dorn's Way. My concern is we wanted to take over Laurel Street to Sumter Avenue. We were not allowed to do that. We had to go further. I would want to make sure that we're understanding that this, if the DOT comes back and says, yeah, you can have it, but you get it to Central Avenue, we reconsider what we're doing. Okay,
Yeah, no, just in the park.
gotcha.
Motion to second, we take over Dawn Way from the Highway Department. Motion made and seconded. All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Tupco Inc. in the amount of $164,391 for the remodeling of Fire Station 1 at 300 West 2nd North Street. The funding of the project to be allocated from the following sources: $155,283 from CDBG and $9,108 from budgeted fire department operating funds.
Make a motion that we authorize this expenditure, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Appointment of a special committee to study public safety municipal facilities.
Okay, what this is I want to appoint a special committee to study public safety municipal facilities, which includes our court, police, and fire department. Russ Touchberry, Aaron Brown, and Bob Jackson, and staff liaisons, Richard Waring, Doug Wright, and Lisa Wallace. And for them to study our court, our fire station, and our police station, and get back with us as soon as they can, not as quick as they can, because it won't be anything that'll be done quick, but hopefully they can really get down to business and do it as thorough as they can. Hopefully nobody's got any questions on that.
Is there a chairman appointed to this committee?
And I'd like the chairman to be Russ Touchberry. Do we need a motion on that?
Not.
I don't think you do.
Yeah.
It's not a council action.
Yeah. You can do that, but you don't need council.
Yeah, okay. All right, and you all can go to work. Where we at now, Lisa?
Round public comments.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have anybody signed up for public comment.
You don't have anybody?
Motion, we go into executive session to discuss personnel, contractual, and legal matters related to a personnel matter related to the Tree Protection Board, legal matter related to mediation and Mary Mead Associates Limited Partnership case, contractual and legal matters regarding economic development project Wood, contractual matters related to potential lease of town-owned property, formal Century 21.
I have a motion.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carried.
Do you want that or you want me to hold on to it?
There's a guy I want you to meet. I'll try to bring him by.